Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to do a very formal podium standing welcome remarks, and I was told that the first 3 rows can't see me. So I will abandon that. So thank you so much for coming. As you can hear, I'm just recovering from a cold, so if I see you in the conference and not approaching you proactively today, just bear with me. I'll be fully recovered tomorrow to engage with you more actively. So I was quite weak coming to this conference, but having seen you in the corridors and in this room, I'm very overwhelmingly happy and excited to kick off the next 2 days. So thank you for taking the time to come and join us. So before I start, I was looking through the participants list and realized 5 years ago when we had the GS conference, it was primarily the project developers, the VVBs, and the consultants who were working in that ecosystem. I looked through the participants list and realized we have representation from, of course, our own project developers, our VVBs, market intermediary partners, governments, universities, corporates, investors, foundations, civil society actors, digital and data-driven companies, experts, and media. So for me, that shows what's happened in the last 5 years. What used to be a small, very tight group of community is now really growing fast. And it's not just because of what Gold Standard does. I think it's because what this community, this group, has brought to the world and how much we've contributed to that change. So I'm not very known for a positive and celebratory speech, according to my team members. But I think it's really important to maybe take the next 2 days and take stock of what's happened in the last 20 years. So Gold Standard was established 20 years ago by WWF and like-minded civil society actors to ensure environmental integrity and sustainable development in the carbon markets under the UN CDM. And in that 20 years, I'm sure all of us, we relentlessly worked. I think everyone I speak to in this field, we're always overworked, busy, tired, frustrated. But if we step back a little bit, look at the progress we've made in the last 20 years. Some can say that it's glass half empty, but I want us to look at it glass half full and see how we can fill that glass quickly, urgently, but in a collective way. So I don't need to go through how urgent it is, and our next speech, Louise will be talking about the climate urgency, but I want to slightly reflect on the 20 years. So in 2003, when we were established, how was ESG or impact treated in corporate setups, if you remember? Did private equities or investors talk about impact as a criteria to invest? I was laughed at. Just 5 years ago, I was talking to private equities, and they said, what? And now, we're in a very different place. Governments, how many of them are talking about SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, as a underpinning decision-making goals in their policy making? Now you can't get away with not addressing SDGs. We didn't have NDCs back then. And now we have a Paris Agreement. Whether that's great or not, or good quality or not, is for another time. But we now have at least a target objective that as a global community we've agreed. And let's look at carbon markets. When we were established, SDG was too complex. Sustainable development goals, co-benefits were too complex to quantify, monitor, measure. Now it's a norm. Not doing it is considered less of a quality. Think about the time when we were printing out audit reports and filing them, making notes on papers. Now we're talking about blockchain. We're talking about data storage using the latest technology. We're talking about digital MRV solutions that's going to plug in to enhance the quality of data, enhance the quality of impact, and enhance the transparency of the impact delivery, the journey that we're all in. So yes, we're frustrated every day, but if we step back a little bit, it's a tremendous effort, the progress this group has delivered. And I think it's worth taking a moment to celebrate that. Take the next 2 days to pat in each other's backs and say, well done, but what can we do more and what needs to change? Because the standards, the systems around it were created to fit the purpose 20 years ago. And we don't live in that world today. And if you simply look at carbon markets, now the voluntary standards, the voluntary actions are being included into compliance, national regulatory frameworks, the regional policies, which we should be celebrating. That's the legacy we are creating. That's the change in needle that we're bringing to change. Because when voluntary actions were defined 20 years ago, it was to fill the void of policy. It was to fill the void of ambitious corporate action. But now, at least in our community, in this room, we're seeing ever more ambitious action being delivered. So I think I really encourage you to take the next 2 days to take stock of what's happened in the last 2 decades, and let's see how we can fill that glass half empty in a collective manner. So from Gold Standard's point of view, we are here to support you. This conference is not about Gold Standard. It's to really listen to you and understand what we can do better, where we can improve and innovate to deliver your ambition. So just to give you a little bit of example of some of the innovations that we've been introducing in the market is, if we want to bring millions to billions and billions to trillions, and that took 2 decades to even talk about millions to trillions, and mostly coming from the private sector, what needs to happen? We can't be thinking about one solution. For example, the voluntary carbon market, or the Article 6, or a blended finance vehicle, an impact fund, landscapes approach. It's all of the above. And a lot of people ask me, what's a perfect solution? There is no perfect solution, and that's why the community gathers today. Because we do need to think about, okay, the science has evolved. We are all evolving as individuals and organizations, and the way we're collaborating. And how do we need to progress in the context of that change? So we've introduced, how do we scale that up to millions, to billions, to trillions? So we started to think about, how do we use our 20 years of experience, apply that to scale finance, scale solutions. We've introduced, fund requirements. So how do we bring the measurement of impact from project level, intervention level, to fund and portfolio level? So we're now piloting with impact funds, private equities, to certify the fund under Gold Standard, which means the fund is following the core requirements of Gold Standard. We've also finally covered the entire SDG 13, which means we've also introduced adaptation framework. Because I think we're mature enough to now know that it's not just mitigation, it's not just adaptation. And I think the carbon markets have demonstrated that. So how do we measure mitigation and adaptation and resilience and not create this political sort of divide, but think about it in a holistic solution, holistic SDGs. Because when you go to a local community delivering on an agriculture project, they're not going to think about mitigation targets and adaptation targets. They're not going to think about how to measure individual SDGs for the sake of measurement. It affects their lives, it affects their practices, it affects their yields, it affects their families. Right? So we need to think about impact in a holistic way. And it's so much easier said on stage than done. And I'm probably going to delegate all of that hard work to all of you to tell me how we can do that. And we've also and some of my very close partners told me straight face, said, Maggie, you can't just be going for shiny objects. You have to stay true to your core. And this is 4 years ago when I first joined, and that really stuck with me. So since then until now, we've been really investing a lot in building our methodology, our technical team capacity, our support for the stakeholders in the carbon markets that we operate in. We're now working on new innovation under that work. The last time I checked, we have 50 methodologies in the pipeline for development, new project types, new technologies. So we have a lot of work to do to bring those methodologies live. We're also looking into our assurance model and how digital systems can support that process. So when I signed up for this job, I wasn't asked to learn about Web3 communities work or blockchain. I didn't know what they were. Now, it's part of my everyday life. We have to be versed. We have to understand the speed of technology and understand how those can actually deliver on our mission, our vision, to bring climate security and sustainable development for all. So we've been, and also, we just, I think in the last 2 weeks, we've launched a policy-based crediting framework. We've launched a working pilot development work with a partner to look at government's policy change, and can credits or carbon claims come out of that at a policy level. So you can see gold standards evolution looking at intervention project level, going into portfolio fund level, and now looking at strategy and policy level. And this is going to be the innovation that's going to keep us busy for the next many years. And I need all of your support in driving that, because nothing we do at Gold Standard is done on our own, to be very frank with you. And most of you in this room have touched all the work we do, all the things we announce, all the things we publish, all the things we implement. And before I close, I want to say one thing that's really close to my heart is, while we talk about scale, growing to zero, let's not forget that we cannot marginalize the most vulnerable communities in that effort. Because it's quite easy to be sitting in Europe or in the North Americas and think about very innovative solutions when the reality on the ground is not quite ready. So how do we bridge that gap? And I turn to you to tell me how we can be better placed to support the market and our stakeholders. Because I want to make sure we scale, but in an inclusive way. And maybe I'm dreaming, and if I am dreaming, please stop me in the hallway and tell me that's not possible. But I do believe if we want to get to climate security and sustainable development for all, we have to address that. So, the next 2 days, we're going to have many sessions that basically covers all parts of what we do and what our stakeholders are very interested to hear and discuss. So take advantage of that. Tell us how to get there in a better way, how to get there faster, hopefully, and in an inclusive way, and also have fun. Hopefully this afternoon I'll start to recover much more and engage much actively with you in the corridors and in the bilateral rooms. So I look forward to meeting every single one of you in the next two days. And remember, we're not trying to find a perfect solution. We need to learn, and this community is known for that. And we need to find solutions and innovate going forward to reach climate security and sustainable development for all. So thank you so much, and I wish you the best 2 days ever.